Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Would you like even more content? Here's my Patreon. Now onto the stories. Case file number 1006, written by Cherrycranberries. The officer who teleported me to safety. I was telling the story to someone today. I haven't spoken about the story in many years, so I thought I might share it. This happened about 10 years ago. I was barely a 20-year-old girl living in Massachusetts. I was driving to my college at the time. I commuted to school, and this particular day was very snowy, icy, and sleeting. I don't know why school was in session, but in the Northeast, they don't take bad weather very seriously. I think we've all seen the memes of cars with piles of snow on them saying they're heading to work. That's New England for you. So anyway, I'm driving to school and I was late. The road of which I was driving on was a 2-lane highway that was very steep. Between the 2 lanes were Jersey barriers, and the opposite flow of traffic was on the other side. Like many roads in Massachusetts, there are no shoulders, and there were no turnarounds. Once you were on the highway, you had to drive another 5 miles before you could pull off to the closest exit. It was a type of highway where if your car stopped, you were screwed because there's nowhere to pull off. Again, lack of shoulders and grass, just concrete barriers on both sides and barriers in the middle. It was a dangerous highway that many people had died on. Even a friend of my mom's coworker died on it. I was driving pretty fast for the type of weather I was in. I was in the far left lane and could see a tractor trailer in the far right, but behind my car. Suddenly, my car fishtailed and I spun out completely. I was suddenly in the far right lane, facing oncoming traffic. The tractor trailer was coming at me, like coming at me. There was no time or place to go. I remember this feeling came over me, like my brain didn't register what was happening. And suddenly, out of nowhere, my car is in reverse, and I was in a miracle of a small shoulder, but still facing oncoming traffic. I don't know how it happened, and I remember being in shock how I did that. The tractor trailer blew by me in seconds. I mean, I was literal toast if I didn't get into that shoulder. Breathing heavily and saying to myself, did I really just do that? Within what must have been 10 to 15 seconds, I hear a few knocks on my driver window. I know it was about 10 to 15 seconds because I had the Britney Spears song Stronger on, and the car flipped at the bridge of the song, and the knock came at my window at the last chorus. I opened the window, and a young male police officer is now staring right at me. He then says, "Hey, I saw your car spin out." I see the lights behind now, and his car parked right behind me in the same small squeeze of a shoulder that ended very quickly up ahead. Clearly seeing me in what probably looked like total shock, he continued on, "You were going too fast." I said, "Yeah, I know." And then he said in this nearly soft but direct tone, "Stop rushing. Why are you rushing? You need to relax, okay? Relax." It was something like that. He then says how he's going to stop the traffic so that I can turn my car around in the proper direction and get back on the road. It's fuzzy how he did it, but I just remember him stopping the flow. I turned my car around out of the shoulder. Remember, my car was facing the wrong direction, so I wouldn't have been able to even turn the car around to get back on this icy and sleet busy highway, and slowly pull it back onto the proper direction I was supposed to be in. I continue on and look behind me. Normally you can see a cop pull out after you, see their lights on, or the car themselves if they turn it off, etc. But all I saw were the cars that were waiting for me now driving. It's weird to explain this, but the cop disappeared in seconds. I mean, disappeared. Like I said, there was nowhere for this cop to go. The only turnaround, the small cutout median that cops tend to use to go in different directions, wasn't for another mile ahead, and the first exit off wasn't for another 5 miles. The small little shoulder ended right after where I was, and this cop was nowhere to be seen. It was so weird. I remember looking back several times in the mirror and saying, "Where did he go? What?" It was so odd I thought about it all day. I came home and told my parents what happened. Of course, in shock that my car spun out in the opposite direction and I almost hit a tractor trailer. I told them exactly where this took place, how my car went into reverse in which I have no recollection of, and the magical cop that showed up in 10 seconds and disappeared as fast. My own parents thought it was the strangest thing. I've told this story to a few people I know who also have called it very weird. I think, and my parents agreed, either that cop was sent by God at that exact moment I needed help, or he wasn't really a cop at all. It's been a decade, and I still think about this encounter. Without that man, I wouldn't have been able to get back on the highway unless I took a risk or sat there in confusion and shock with the possibility of someone hitting me while snow, ice, and sleet fell on my car. It was a very peculiar and life-saving encounter I won't ever forget. Case notes for file 1006. The police officer that teleported me to safety. I wonder what mixture guardian angels have with quantum immortality. So, if you consider that quantum immortality, we're saved from death in a certain sense, or we die in the one universe but our soul is preserved and moved over to a different universe. I'm always wondering if there's a limit to how far we can travel in the multiversal ocean. You know, the islands that pepper out the ocean are the universes, and then between it there's still some medium. I don't know if it's just like physical space in the universe or it's something else, but presumably there is some kind of distance between the two. Or even if they're right next to each other, there's still, if you want to go to the one at the far end, a billion universes away, presumably that would take time. Maybe not. But if it does, there may be a preference for the transfer to take place to the nearest one possible. Now, maybe you die in like a billion universes in a row in the same way. And then the billionth and one, that's the only one left where you can be saved. But maybe the universe has a preference to keep you closer, and so to do that, they'll rewind time slightly, or offer some kind of guardian angel program. Maybe that's what this cop was. Of course, to you, you'll just see him as a cop, but in reality, it was just a program of the simulation that was saving you. Kind of like a good Agent Smith, in the Matrix, of course. I think that's a pretty cool idea. Case file number 1007, written by Symbiotic Tau. Impossible British music. So just now, I was listening to Rural Britannia, as one does, and I turned off my phone. I am certain of this, and went downstairs to get batteries for my Xbox controller and a glass of water. As I neared my room, I heard a sound again. I entered, and I could clearly hear the tune of Rural Britannia still playing. Then it stopped. Then I heard a man sing, without music, "And Britons will never be slaves," which was odd, as this was not the same voice from the song I was listening to, not the same emphasis, and not even the same words. There's no "and" before Britons. Then silence again. Confused, but assuming the phone must still be on, I picked it up. It was still turned off, just as I was certain I'd left it. Nobody else in the house is awake, and I have never experienced hallucinations. I haven't a clue what to make of this. Case notes for file 1007, Impossible British Music. So, auditory hallucinations certainly do happen, they are real. There's explosive head syndrome, for instance. But usually it doesn't manifest as entire lyrics, clear as day. I wonder if your phone somehow picked up a signal from someone else playing nearby, a similar song? Or was it just a momentary broadcast from a different universe, one where the song that you're listening to, Rural Britannia, was with a different lyric in tune overall? Or maybe just a variant in their universe, it's possible. I do often wonder just how many other songs or paintings or works of art or stories or movies or TV shows or games there are in other copies of the universes out there. How many variations of things we love, like Harry Potter, in a different universe, a billion leagues away. Did J.K. Rowling also write Harry Potter, but maybe a bit differently? Maybe Harry Potter is a girl. Maybe he's actually very powerful in that book, in that version. And Voldemort is evil, but maybe a bit misunderstood. I don't know. Just variations that could be interesting. I hope there's a way to go back and experience them all. That would require the real world to be almost eternal, and then we just can spend all of our days just experiencing each variation and copy, and just learning about ourselves and what we like, and it's just too cool. It's like the holodeck in Star Trek, but taken to quite the extreme. And now time for the quote of the day. It's hard to beat a person that never gives up. Babe Ruth. Yeah, very similar to Michael Jordan's quote. The same kind of moral to it, I would say. The whole point and premise of life is never to give up. As soon as you give up, you're essentially putting the controller down and just saying, well, life can't get better. I'm not good enough, or life is too oppressive, and maybe both are true in a certain sense, but you can improve yourself and you can succeed in spite of how difficult life is. Now, yeah, there are extreme situations where there's just nothing you can really do. But even then, like if you're born in Kenya or something, a very poor country, you can still try to make the best of your environment. It is sad, of course, in a way that life is so uneven, but you can't really change it. All you can do is try to make the best of the hand that you're dealt. There's great pride in that. Not to be the best in the world, but to be the best you can be. Like the video, subscribe. Kinetic Symphony signing off.